evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. It's me, Chris, and I'm joined by Mark. As always, every Monday, we're asking the same question. Mark, what's going on? What's going on with you, mate?
We're going to win the World Cup? No. Didn't I say this last week?
Not the way England played against USA, mate. I'll tell you that for free. My God. It's not coming home at that rate, mate. Yes.
Yeah, no. We're going home, I think, is the way to put it.
No, I think you're probably getting knockers, but we're going to get stuck into that in a minute. We've got a bit of World Cup action, a little bit of Newcastle mixed together in a bit of a tasty Monday night cocktail for everybody, just to send you to Kip when you finish. So we'll get stuck into that in a minute. So just before I do a little bit of housekeeping, if you haven't already and you're new to the channel, hello, good evening to you. Please click that like and subscribe button. We'd love you to come and join us. I think we're a little way from Mark there. We're on about 2,070 subscribers. So we're really close to that 2,100 mark. We'd love you to get us there. All free content, this, 2 live shows Mondays and Wednesdays, and pop-up videos like transfer rumors and links. Not ITKs for people in the comments, little snidey knocks in the comments. Not ITKs, just reporting on the news. And many thanks to our wonderful community that you can be part of, who stick up for us in the comments as well, which we absolutely love. And we are live tonight, so please jump in the comments as always, as I think we already have some of the regulars in early doors. BT's in the house. How are you, BT? We've got the new monkeys here as well. Good evening to you too, Bonnie lad. And yeah, we'll get stuck right in then, Mark. So we are going to kick this off. We've got a little bit of a twist on the episode tonight. So our Welsh wizard, with his smooth Tom Jones-esque tones, is not here in person, sadly, but he has recorded a little bit of a video. I feel like I'm giving him an Oscar, Mark, because he's not here in person, but he's got a little video for us. But
so I can't be with you this evening, but
virtual die 2.0. But we're gonna hear from Di virtually in a minute. But what me and Mark are going to do first is we are going to get stuck in for a little bit of a World Cup flavour match preview for the big game tomorrow, Mark, which is the Battle of Britain. Wales taking on England in the World Cup. Obviously, I'm not an Englishman. I'm not even a token Englishman. I was born north of the border, but I will definitely give my opinion on this impartial. There'll be no Glaswegian blinkers on. I promise, mate. There'll be no Glaswegian blinkers on this at all. Right? Let's get stuck in. By the way, I'm only joking. Right? So, Mark, you gotta be feeling confident about this. The Battle of Britain. I mean, Wales have looked really, really poor, haven't they? I think they've. To use my dad's words, who's more of a Glaswegian than I am, Bale and Ramsey are fucked, by the way, is what he said. So we'll hear from the Welsh wizard soon, mate. What's your take on this game? Are you feeling confident?
I mean, if you look at it in the way that Wales played against Iran, it should be completely one-sided. You think what England did to Iran in that first game, and then what Wales couldn't do in their game. It was unbelievable just how poor they were. Iran played them perfectly. They were aggressive. They got away with a fair few things, but let's face it, they were the better team on the day. England were very average against the US, but let's give a lot of credit to the US, who were very, very good. They were quick. They moved the ball well. They pressed very, very well. England just couldn't cope with it. So I kind of go into it as kind of always do with these, just with a little bit of sort of trepidation almost in the fact that we should win. But I'm not supremely confident because we've seen before we can slip up against sides, especially against the home nations. We do have issues where we do slip up. We go back, when Stephen Davis scored for Northern Ireland, where we've sort of struggled against Scotland in the Euros as well when it at Wembley. So it's not unheard of for us to struggle against one of our home nations, is it?
Yeah, Ian sounds like he might be under a bit of pressure if the family are Welsh, we lose the game or England lose the game. So don't worry, Ian. I'm pretty sure you haven't got anything to worry about there. Well, Mark's on the buttons. I'm on the buttons. Who's on the buttons? Oh, the buttons are going a bit crazy there. What's going on? You just knocked your keyboard by mistake, Mark.
No,
so we've got the new monkey saying, evening there, you're wobbling a bit there. It's like the Blair Witch Project. We've got the tunes one and only. He says, England couldn't win a toy cost. Classic. And then we've got George in the comments. Good evening to you too, George.
Good evening.
We've also got new monkey saying he's got a feeling we might actually lose tomorrow. can see Southgate picking his usual favourites, even though they've been poor for club this season and country in the World Cup. Well, it's an interesting one, that, Monkey, because it takes us on to, I suppose, the big news really is Southgate was under a lot of criticism. I think he was going into this tournament anyway, Mark, wasn't he? Because people have talked about his negative tactics. He's not been able to get the best out of the talented players that he's got. I think he won himself a lot of favours by picking likes of Callum Wilson and James Maddison, dynamic players that can change a game, who are in good form for their clubs. And actually got him a little bit of credit, I think, in the bank with some of the fans who doubted him a little bit. But I think the biggest problem that I think he's made for himself is when you're playing so poor against the US, you create nothing. And Harry Kane's clearly carrying a knock, and you're persevering with him, and you're not bringing on Wilson. And then you've got, arguably, I think, the most talented English player right now in that squad, and Phil Foden, sitting on the bench, kicking his heels up. And when that game's crying out for
don't
creativity.
Get started.
Well, no, we need to start on it, because Wales aren't blessed. We'll hear from Di in a minute, but Wales aren't blessed with that kind of talent on the bench. They're not even blessed with that kind of talent in the starting 11. They had it once upon a time, but Father Time has caught up with them, as I'm sure we'll hear from Di pretty soon. But Phil Foden is electric. Phil Foden is talented. He's technically gifted. He scores goals. He creates play. He's a fantastic footballer. And to not play him in a game where you're crying out for creativity, it was criminal, mate. It was criminal, Mark. What was your take on it?
Look, everybody was poor. I made a comment about Kieran Trippier being poor against the US, and he was, but he was no worse than anybody else on the pitch. No,
they're not calling the Liverpool fans. Calling from the Trent from above, or the Liverpool
exactly
fans. Generational talent.
Look, the front three were all bang average. Kane, I said in our chat, didn't I? I said Kane looked like Champions League Kane, final Kane. He looked like he was carrying a knock. He didn't look fit.
Flush again. Yeah.
He plays in those sort of situations. He's too deep, so we don't have anybody high enough up the pitch to hold the ball, to be able to play the wide plays that are running beyond him. Saka was poor. In total contrast to the way he played against Iran. Sterling was anonymous. I actually forgot he was on the field, which just says everything about his performance. And when you look at it, took 60-odd minutes for Southgate to make a change, and you're sitting there with Foden on the bench is just, you said it, it's criminal. And the fact that he didn't get a minute on the field in that game is absolutely ridiculous. Look, we could have shown a qualification at that point. You go into the game tomorrow with nothing really to do. You play the players that you want to play. Give players a rest. You go into the last 16 fresh, and now we haven't got that luxury. Yes, we're probably still through, by default, but we don't have the luxury of being able to just take it easy. We have to go out and search for a result, really, because if we do take do act complacent, then we can come unstuck. But I can't get away with the fact that you saw those pictures of Phil Foden sitting on the bench, and he's like, he's not going to move him. I couldn't believe he didn't make a change for so long, because at halftime you could see everything that was going wrong.
Yeah.
In that game.
And there was space. There was space behind the US that Foden could have got in and exploited that. There was definitely space there for that.
But even just to keep the ball, the fact that we yes, they played very well, and let's come back to that. It's not like we were playing a bunch of mugs. The US are a very good side, but we couldn't get the ball to the two lads in the middle. And Bellingham was pretty much anonymous as well. He was nowhere near as effective as he was against Iran, but we bypassed him. Southgate talked about the how well Maguire and Stones played and how well they kept the ball. They just passed it between themselves. I think they accounted for a quarter of all of our passes, and most of those were just backwards and forwards. But in the first minute of the game was just them passing the ball back to each other. It was absolutely ridiculous. It looked like that game in the Simpsons, where it's the international tournament and you're just watching the ball. In fact, I tweeted it out, didn't I?
You did, the South Americans, where they just go back and forth and back and forth. Well, it's interesting because
it's pathetic.
There is some potential team changes that could happen. Kyle Walker's obviously declared himself fit. There's a bit of calling, I suppose, I say social media. I don't think Southgate will pay attention to that. Potentially, Trippier might, be dropped out for Walker, or will he move trips to the left and drop Schar? I don't know. Shaw's done all right, to be fair. I can't see him playing Trent Alexander-Arnold, because with Wales, I'm sure Dial covered this in a minute. They've got Daniel James and Brennan Johnson. Now, Daniel James isn't blessed with much else, but he's got rapid pace, and he can easily exploit Trent Alexander-Arnold's defensive frailties, and so could Brennan Johnson quite easily. So I think Southgate would be asking for trouble if he played Trent ahead of Trippier. Walker won't be fit, so I think you'll maybe keep Walker back. So I can see Trips probably playing again, in all fairness. And, he was poor against America, like you say, but everybody was poor. But there's one player that blows my mind that is still in this team. James Maddison's back in training as well, which is great for Maddison. Obviously, he's massively linked to Newcastle. We're keen to see what he does in an England shirt, and hopefully in a black and white shirt come January. But you look at Mason Mount, and Mason Mount's offering fuck all at the minute at an international level, not just at this tournament. He's offered fuck all in an England shirt for a long time, really. He's been really poor. I think I even shouted for Joe Willock to get in the squad ahead of Mason Mount, mate. Do you know what I mean? And I don't understand. He's one of them favourites, isn't he? And you're right, Tony, what you're saying there, mate. Trent cons to defend to save his life. I would advocate playing, there's our co-host, I would advocate playing Trent in a midfield and Trippier behind him as a right back, and having a stronger right side like that. And if you are up against it with some pace, against the likes of Johnson or James, then Trippier can have maybe almost a second right back to drop in with him, to try and help him out there. But for me, Mason Mount should be nowhere near this squad, Mark. I think it's horrendous he's getting a game.
Yeah, BT says that. I do get a feeling that Trippier might get shifted left tomorrow. I think,
and bring Walker in, right?
I think Schar actually was one of the better players. I think Maguire had a very good game. I think Luke Shaw was all right. I don't think they were spectacular, but they played okay. I think they were the only two. I know Kyle Walker was going to be out for the first two games. There was always the chance that he would be fit for this game. I think the hope was that we would be through, that would be comfortable, that you could bring him in and get him minutes before the knockout stage. To come on to Mount, he's just, I don't understand what he offers as an attacking force. I get the press. He does press very well, but he does absolutely nothing with the ball. He had a shot, was it in the second half, late in the first half, early in the second half, where he had a shot where he's put through, but that was it. He did nothing, and he's done nothing for England for quite a while. He's been in poor form for Chelsea. Chelsea have been in poor form, to be fair. I fail to see, other than the fact that he's one of Southgate's favourites, I fail to see what he offers that somebody else couldn't give you. Grealish, of everybody, and I know that that's a swear word on here, but Grealish showed in the fleeting minutes that he had against the US about keeping the ball, about making players commit to him, drawing fouls.
He wins your free kicks. He gets you far up the pitch and he wins your free kicks. That's good. That's good to have.
He stops their press a little bit in that regard, because he does win your free kicks again. So they do start to have to back off. And his ability with the ball to glide with it, to just carry it with him, to play the pass at the last minute. We've seen that all done before. And by doing that, it does play against what they're doing. But what we do lack as an England side is certainly against the US, was that ability to move the ball quickly and negate the press that the US had, and we just couldn't do that. Nobody on that field could do it. Mason Mount was one of those players. I'm not just going to single him out because everybody was absolutely guilty of it.
Yeah, of course.
He's at a low level in terms of a low performance. He was quite low on that list.
I think that
I don't think he was particularly good. Sorry, I don't think he was particularly good against Iran. I think
No, I thought he was one of the poorest players.
We had a very, very good game against him. He didn't do an awful lot again, and in a side that's flying, you sort of hope that you're doing something to justify your place in the team, and he just didn't.
No, I think you're right. I agree with what Monkey's saying there. That a few guys in the comments do as well. Trent isn't a right back; he's an attacking midfielder, stroke right midfielder. And do you know what? I think the longer they persevere with this fucking ludicrous notion that Trent Alexander-Arnold is a right back, I think that they're going to hold his career back. I think it takes a brave manager to push him a bit further up the park and bring somebody else in. Like if I was Jurgen Klopp, not that I'd want him to sign him because I'd quite like us to sign him as an eventual replacement for Trippier, but I'd go out and buy someone like Lampard and stick him at right back and push Trent further up the park. Liverpool's midfield lacks massive creativity. Push him a bit further up, play him on the right side of the midfield. And you watch that lad, he will kick on and become a much, much better player. I think the Monkey's totally right there, and a few guys agree. Tony agrees with you, and I think BT agrees with you too. But another thing that the new Monkey said there as well is that I think with Mount, because he plays for Chelsea, if he played for West Ham or Leicester, he wouldn't be there. And I totally agree with that. It goes right against everything that Southgate says about form and about this, about everything else. But I think the big question for us. Sorry, Mark, go on just before we jump into the next section. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, well, that went out the window straight away because he came in saying that he was going to play, pick on form, that nobody would sort of get ruled out. If you were having a good, you were in form for your club, you would get a look in. It doesn't happen. It didn't happen from day one.
Big Dan Burn, mate. Big Dan Burn. If that was the case, Big Dan Burn would be on that plane. The big tall bastard. You'd be able to see him from here in the Middle East. You'd be able to see him. But I think the big question for us, I suppose, as Newcastle fans as well, because we are a Newcastle podcast after all, the big question is Callum Wilson. And will Callum Wilson start? There's been a few people shouting on for already, even Wayne Rooney, England's record goal scorer. He's been saying that Wilson should start. He's shown in Rooney's own words he's more than capable. I like Rooney even more these days. Honestly, he's called Ronaldo a prick, and then he's saying how mint Callum Wilson is. I love Wayne Rooney now. I used to hate him when he scored against us all the time. Remember that goal he scored against us when me and you behind the goal? And we looked at each other and went, "Did that go in?" How fast he fucking hit the ball right behind the Leazers. Jesus Christ. But yeah, so shouts for Callum Wilson to start. I mean, Kane did not look fit at all against the US. Apparently he's had these pains in his foot. He's been for a scan. I mean, Callum showed straight away in that Iran game, even as unselfish side by squaring it to Grealish because he was in a better position. Callum is a brilliant centre forward. We know that all too well as Newcastle fans. He's got more pace, I think, than Kane. He plays on the shoulder very well. I think he would cause Wales a lot of trouble. Their back line is not quick. Their back line has not got great positional sense. And I think they would have kittens against a player like Wilson on that shoulder spinning in behind. And if Kane is carrying the foot injury, what is the harm in starting Callum Wilson? I don't think Southgate will, Mark. I'll get your take on this in a minute. I can probably imagine what you're going to say as well. I don't think Southgate will start Wilson because he seems to have this weird thing in his mind that Kane has to start all the games. And I think if he starts Kane against Wales, he could potentially damage him even further. That he actually misses the more crucial games in this tournament. And then that's what it'll be. So what do you think, mate?
Yeah, I think he's always going to, while he has the chance, and if Kane says he's fit, he'll play him. I don't think I don't want to see him play, and I don't want to. It's not that I don't want to see him play because I particularly want Wilson to play, if that makes sense. I don't want to play because I don't think he's fully fit, and I think he needs the time to get himself right for the knockout phase. So to pull him out of this game, I think would be the ideal scenario. You can bring him on with 20 minutes to go, give him a few more minutes, a few more match minutes to kind of get on if he's all right and if we need him. But if you don't need him, don't play him. I'd like to see that front. I was going to say I'd like to see that front.
He will play him.
Yeah, I believe he will. As much as there's a clamour for Wilson, I think Shearer was also one that said he was ready and to come in. I'd like to see that front three changed. I'd like to see Foden
freshened up.
Yeah, Foden, Wilson, even Foden, Wilson, and Rashford. The pace and the to play those two, especially with Rashford and Wilson, to play on the shoulder a little bit more. Foden, even if you almost have those as a two with Foden floating, so he can play through balls, so he can make use that creative brain that he's got. I just think that will pull Wales' defensive line apart, and we saw particularly against the US in the first game, how static they can be and how caught through the line they can get.
Yeah,
If you can run at them and play those balls through, then they are susceptible to conceding that space.
Yeah, I'm just looking at their potential lineup here. Now, Dai's going to come on in a minute. We're going to bring up the video that Dai did for us. But you're looking at Mepham, Roden, Davies, and Roberts. I mean, Roberts about the only one of them that's got real pace. I think Roden gets caught out positionally very, very easily. He's not a bad player, but I think he's got a lot to learn. I think Davies is okay, but he can be caught quite easily if you have him square on. I think he's not quickest over 10 yards. I think Mepham's, obviously a pretty average player in all fairness. So yeah, I think any England front three could do these guys, but I'm with you, Mark. Why not? Give it a bit of a freshen up and just scare them. I think it's 7 p.m. Paul in the comments there, mate. It's a 7 p.m. kickoff. Yeah, I assume
we're out. I'm gutted. We're out of the 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock games now, so I can't. I can't.
Imagine the work you'll get done now, Mark. Imagine the work you'll get done now with all these games.
Shocking.
How much work has people just not done or been distracted doing there with all these
productivity this week is going to go up, unfortunately. So there you go.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I think from an England perspective, I think most England fans will be disappointed if you don't win this game. And in all fairness, I mean, we'll get Dai's take in a second, and then we'll just dip out while Dai does his thing. But I think for me, Mark, from perspective of England, I would definitely drop Kane and play Wilson. But even if he plays Kane or Wilson, if he doesn't freshen up or not, if he just goes with the same side, I still think England will have too much for Wales, and I think it'll be probably about 2-0 to England. Is my prediction on the score, mate. What's yours?
I'd like to agree. I think in my Super Six I went 1-1.
Did you? Cautious.
So I'm properly cautious. I said this the other day. I failed to get any sort of ambition around a Southgate side, and I know it's ridiculous when you look at the fact we've been to a World Cup semi-final, we've been to a Euro final, but you look at the results over the last year and the way that we played, particularly against the US, against a side that isn't the best in the world. Yes, they're like I said, they're a good side, but we failed to play the ball quickly enough. And I think Wales will come at us with a plan, a little bit like the US. Whether they're able to, to carry that out on that sort of level will be seen tomorrow. But if they come out a little bit like that, we may struggle a little bit. They've got a couple of players that will potentially step up in the biggest game. And what better way to sign off their international careers than putting one over England? And that is my worry with it.
Well, in all fairness, out of the two of them, I think Ramsey is absolutely finished. I watched him, I think even just trying to bring a ball down from, it wasn't a massive fight. There was a goalkeeper long ball or something like that, so we flicked it on and he went to bring it down and he couldn't even do that. Bale still has those quick feet and he still has those moments, give him a dead ball situation, and I think, he's still a threat. Put a cross in the box, and if he gets away from his mark, he's still got a leap on him. He could still get a good header on, but he's not the Gareth Bale. He's nowhere near the Gareth Bale that he was. So for me, I just think that I think unless he has just a moment out of nothing, really, I can't see them having any threat whatsoever. Against England, I really can't. I'm just laughing at some of these comments here as well. I think we'll caught some of you out actually because we came on a bit earlier, 9:30. So we'll caught some of you off, guys. Sorry, it's normally 10 o'clock, Ash. We might have caught you napping there, caught you making yourself a cheese toasty or a cup of tea or something, mate. So apologies about that. But if you hit the notification bell, you will get a little bit of a heads up that we are coming on. So it's good to have you, Ash. It's good to have a few other guys on there as well. We've got James Whittaker in there. James is saying it's a Nations League. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay. I mean, you might be right, James. It's not going to be a great game, I think, in all fairness. And it's great to interact with you as well, mate. And there's some great guys here in the comments as well, James. So great to have you on board, mate. If you're new, smash the subscribe button, mate. We'd love to have you on board on more episodes. But I think what we're going to do now, a little bit different, guys, but we're going to get Dai's take on this. So Dai sent us a little, Ash has been playing Call of Duty, love it. He's been playing a bit of COD, love that. But Dai's done a bit of a video for us where he's given us the Welsh perspective on how he thinks the game's going to go. And if any of you watch this channel and you see Dai and you hear Dai's very honest. He's a very passionate Welshman, but he's been very honest on this video. The World Cup's hurting Mark a little bit, isn't it? You can hear it in his voice a little bit. He sounds a bit deflated, doesn't he? Does poor Di?
I think, yeah. I mean, he was lucky enough to go, wasn't he? So, I mean, let's give him that. But he was, I think the impetus that they kind of took from the second half of that American game, they wanted to carry that into the game of Iran, and they just didn't. It was just it was so flat. And I think the video that he put together was after the Iran game, game. So it was. If he does sound a little flat, that is the reason for it. But yeah, we'll drop him in now. So we'll hand over to the Welsh wizard himself.
And we'll be back soon. Cheers, guys.
I thought England struggled a little bit to deal with the non-stop nature, if you like, of the USA. They were fast, they were aggressive, they moved the ball quickly, and I think there were a lot of things that England kind of struggled to deal with in that sense. I mean, at the moment, Wales will not offer them that kind of threat, if we're being totally honest. We were cumbersome, slow on the ball, didn't do many basic things well, didn't pass the ball particularly well, and didn't create much, didn't put the ball in the box, which I thought was going to be our big plan, given how poorly the Iranians defended crosses against England. As a consequence of that, I think Wales have got to change the way they play. I think looking at how we attacked, especially, I thought we were too slow. Obviously, the aim is to get the ball wide and shift the ball quickly in that way, but we just didn't do it particularly well. And then didn't utilise the windows that we got into. Nico Williams got in a couple of times, didn't get a good ball in. Connor Roberts the same. When Dan James came on, he did the same. Couldn't quite find that killer ball. So I think that's something we've got to work on. I think the big thing that no one in Wales really wants to accept or talk about particularly is the situation that Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey find themselves in. I think they've been Wales's go-to players probably since about 2010, I think is about right, is about fair. In terms of what they've offered creatively, in an attacking sense, in a leadership sense. And I think that the ship has just sailed, unfortunately, in terms of what they're able to kind of conjure that bit of magic, and that ship has maybe sailed. I say that because I think we need a fresh outlook on Tuesday. I think we've been too cumbersome, too slow, like I said, and I think if we're going to get anything out of that England game, I think there's two things we need to do. I think we need to surprise England a little bit and put a different formation out and try something that maybe England aren't expecting. And I think with that in mind, I think we need to have youthful players out there, players playing without fear, players who are going to commit the opposition and run at people like Harry Maguire and Luke Shaw and take them on and be a threat. And I think that we've got players who are capable of doing that in Brennan Johnson, in Daniel James, even though his final ball isn't always the best, his pace can frighten people. I think Zorba Thomas is something a bit different. I appreciate he's playing in the Championship, but he can offer something a little bit different, I think. So we have got options of people who do that, and I wonder if, giving Bale and Ramsey an opportunity to come on from the bench and be our threat from the bench, I think is maybe a good way to change things up. I think equally, the big one for me is, aside from the underperformance of Bale and Ramsey in this tournament in general, is I think tactically we've just been too open in midfield. I think playing one holding midfielder in Ethan Ampadu and expecting him to kind of do everything is a little bit too much. For me, I think we should just, as I say, try something totally different. I'd play three people at the back in Ampadu, Rodden and Ben Davies. Don't have defensive wing-backs, have attacking wing-backs in Daniel James and Zorba Thomas, but have two holders, be it Allen and Morel, perhaps, is probably who I would go for if Allen's fully fit. If you want to include a Bale from the start, have him as the 10, but if not, I would be looking at having Harry Wilson as being the 10, and then Kiefer Moore up front with Brennan Johnson. Again, just something a bit different to mix things up. That's what I would go for. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Page, rightly so to an extent, has been loyal to a lot of those players, and I think he thinks that they need to hang on to that loyalty, and I understand that decision. I'm not saying it's the right decision necessarily, but I understand that. But changes are definitely needed, no doubt. I think there'll be players sitting on the bench who haven't really got much minutes yet. Joe Morel being one of them, thinking I've contributed a lot to get Wales to this point, and I haven't had my chance to shine. So I think we've got to try something different and go for that. Ultimately, I don't think it'll matter. I think maybe we'll nick a draw. I think a draw would be fine for England. They'd still realistically go through. but I don't think it's going to be a classic. It should be in a 0-0 and maybe a 1-1. But there's a bit of heart going into that. Head says it may be a bit different, but it's a one-off. Saudi Arabia have proved to us, as they've beaten Argentina, that anything can happen in a one-off game of football, and that's what this is now. We're in knockout territory already. We've got to win. We've got to hope the other game is a draw, and go from there. So as long as we take care of ourselves and get that win, then anything can happen. I think.
So there's the thought of the Welsh Wizard. Some great comments coming in there, guys. I loved James's comment there. He thinks that Dai might get Page's job after this. He's a bit worried about Dai's tactics, which is superb. He does know his onions, especially when it comes to Wales. But I'll be honest. It is going to be a real tough ask for Wales, Mark, as was said there. I think Dai summed it up perfectly, hasn't he? And very honestly as well. And I think all the Welsh fans will feel the same. They've been so heavily reliant on these two really good players for a long time in Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey, Gareth Bale in particular. I mean, even getting to this tournament, Bale was instrumental, even though he was kind of held together with masking tape when he did it. But the fact that they haven't turned up, the fact that they're not at that level. I mean, listen, they're not the only players of their age that aren't quite there. There's been a lot of players at this World Cup. Ironically, not the one that I said would be Gash, which is Cristiano Ronaldo, who got a second goal tonight. So I dropped a clanger on that one, didn't I? But there's a lot of players who have reached that tipping point, Mark, isn't it, in terms of their age, and it's shown at this World Cup. I don't think it's anything to do with the time of the year or the weather, because all the stadiums are air conditioned. I just think it's international football that they can't keep up with the pace, mate. Would you agree with that? Do you think?
I think so. I think the heat does have something to do with it when you get to that age, and especially the lack of game time both of them have.
Yeah,
I mean, Aaron Ramsey barely kicked a football this season, if at all. I'm not even sure he's played a minute. They would go, that's as little as I know about his season. Gareth Bale's barely played. Yes, he came. He scored the equalising goal in the MLS Cup final, but he didn't.
You could have scored that, Mark. You could have scored a goal in that fucking game, mate. A dreadful standard.
But the Heat will take it out of them because they're not match fit. So the effort that they put into the second half against the US will have affected them going into the game against Iran, and they were just so ineffective. But you're right that they've been relied on for, as Dai said, for around sort of 12 years or so. And they've come to the end of their shelf life with the national side. So it is, we've seen in the comments, it is going to be probably their last game. I can't see them getting the result that's going to take them through. But equally, I can see them putting up a massive, massive fight, and I do think they will make it very difficult for us.
Yeah, especially if England refuse to change, as you rightly say, mate. But we'll be watching it. I'm sure you guys will be watching it as well, and we'll pop back on the next video and obviously talk a little bit about how that game's gone. But yeah, I can only see an England win personally, and I think that'll be Wales done, and certainly those two players done as well. But there was another game on earlier on, mate. It was a bit of a Newcastle United derby. It was Bruno versus Schar, wasn't it? Brazil versus Switzerland. One got on and one didn't, mate. I think I'm just looking at the lineups here. Bruno got on, I think it was the
32 minutes he got.
Yeah, 58th minute he come on for Fred. I mean, he should be playing instead of Fred anyway, shouldn't he, really? But Schar didn't get on at all, did he? Shar's been unused at this World Cup so far. Do you think it's because the manager doesn't fancy him, or is he just not fit into the system?
He's sitting behind, was it Akanji and Elvedi, who, let's get it wrong, they are very good defenders. But I do think it's strange, given the form that Shar's been in. I do think it's an odd one, but it happens, doesn't it? And I don't know what his form for Switzerland's been like, so I'll hold my hands.
Yeah, true. He might have been for.
So
he's been in that squad a long time, though, Mark. He's been in that squad a long time.
And I guess the other two, I know Akanji's obviously much younger. I think is Elvedi. I'm not sure how old is he? He's 26. So there is an age advantage to playing together and having the next sort of 4 years or so together for the next Euro run, the next World Cup. So
Ash is saying they've been solid since the Euros, so maybe he doesn't want to
disturb it. But
yeah, that's fair enough. But it's not like he's up against like Botman up against a Van Dijk or something like that. You know what I mean? Arguably, you could say Botman's been better than Van Dijk, but yeah, it's It's a funny one for Schar, but I think we said from a selfish point of view as Newcastle fans, we'd be quite happy if they don't play at all and just have a holiday in Qatar and come back fully fit and fresh, really. So Bruno, come on, I think he had a chance, didn't you? I think he had a header or something. I think he was quite close, but he obviously comes in. Bruno's Bruno, isn't he? He comes in, he doesn't look out of place in that side. The goal was scored by Manchester United's Casemiro in the end, so Brazil won 1-0. But Brazil are funny. Brazil were everybody's favourites. I had a little cheeky flutter on Brazil. I think many people did as well. But they've not looked great, though, have they, Mark, since the tournament's begun? They've not done what we all thought they were going to do.
I think at times, certainly against Serbia, that there were times in the second half, especially, where they looked very, very good, and they looked like they'd started to turn it on. I think they were just cautious today. They're obviously they've lost their real talisman, haven't they? And it looks like Neymar's not. I know they've said. I think there was comments to say earlier on today that he was going to be out for at least a couple of games. But then, is it Tim Vickery had said that he thinks he's done. He's not going to play again in the World Cup, which is, I know he's a bit of an irritating prick at times, isn't he? With his
at times. No, very talented footballer. Very talented.
There's no denying he is a phenomenal footballer, and when you've got that drive to win the World Cup for your country, then it is a shame for him. But they've got plenty of other players that can come in and do a job. Like you say, Bruno. I am surprised Bruno didn't start today.
Me too.
And he went with Fred, but I also understand kind of why you against a slightly stronger opposition, I think, in Switzerland, that you play the pair of them. But I guess for Newcastle, it's a bonus. He's got 30 minutes under his belt. He looked busy. He looked bright when he came on. He tried to move the ball quickly. He was darting here and there and everywhere, and it was typical Bruno. So that's good to see that he's still got that freshness. And if he comes back having only played the odd 30 minutes here and there across the next couple of weeks, then that's all well and good for Newcastle going forward, isn't it?
Absolutely, mate. If only they took Joe Linton, they would have won about 4-0, wouldn't it? Because him and Bruno would have just teamed up, double teamed it, smashed the World Cup on its arse. Would have been absolutely class. But no, I totally agree with you, mate. But there has been some other things going on Newcastle United related away from the World Cup, and this is a great bit of news. There was 28,000 that turned out to watch Newcastle United women take on was it Barnsley? I think it was Mark Barnsley at St James's Park, and two absolute fucking snorting goals by was it one by Georgia Gibson and the other one by was it Shanna Wilkinson? I think it was. Absolute belters, at St James's Park, from like 40 yards out each.
I was going to say they were from some distance. To be fair, the Barnsley goal wasn't too shabby either. So it'd be fair to them, but they were two cracking goals, and in front of 28,000, which is a new record in the FA Cup and the Women's FA Cup now, I think.
So, it was, yes, yeah. Outside of a final, the best turnout outside of a final, I think, for attendance. So it just shows you the Newcastle fans are really getting on board with the women's team as well, mate, which is brilliant. See, I think Amanda Staveley gave them some words of motivation, I think, before the game, because she's a big advocate of the lasses, which I think is class to see. It really is.
Yeah, look, I think we've touched on this before. Like the women's game has been left to rot for so long. It is great that it's getting the attention that it now deserves, and it is improving. You've only got to look at the Super League to go. Look, some of the performances are getting to a much better standard. And Newcastle are on the way, aren't they? So as they build, as they have the money behind them to be able to do this, then
just Was that Joanne Pickford in goals? Was it Ian? To be fair, it was a good strike. But she did have little arms. There's no doubt about that.
When you hit from that far out, just somebody we'll touch on the World Cup. You just think about Seaman in 2002, wasn't it, when Ronaldinho put one over his head? So it was a great show.
It was.
The goals were terrific. Great to see that there's so many in the crowd as well, and get a cup run as well.
Who knows? Who knows? Imagine both the women's and the man's team having a cup run this year would be absolutely superb. Yeah, you're right, Tony. As Mark says, there, the three of the goals were unbelievable. To be fair, Monkey's just smashing in some Bruno stats. We love a Bruno stat. So we've got 29 touches, 18 passes, 1 or 2 long balls, 86% pass accuracy, 1 out of 1 take-ons, 1 out of 1 aerial duels, 2 out of 3 ground duels, 1 foul suffered, 3 ball recoveries. He's just class, isn't he, man? It doesn't matter what game he plays. He's just absolutely class. And BT is saying that Neymar sustained a lateral ligament injury, ouch, on his right ankle.
Yep.
Really blown up. That's bad news.
Funny enough, they were talking about it on TalkSport this morning.
Yeah, I saw it, yeah.
Wow. Yes.
Nasty, mate. It takes you back to how many injuries did you have like that? Fuck me, your ankle was forever swollen, mate.
Ankle, knee, anything, yeah. If you could break it, I've broken it pretty much.
You were like a game of operation for about fucking 6 years.
There's a scar somewhere across my head that you will testament that I will break literally everything.
Absolutely, you're right, Monkey. He is world class. We are so lucky to have him. He is the poster child of this side, as Lee said on the last Evermore that he was on. But yeah, so I mean, Bruno coming to the World Cup. If he can get the final, I think Ian said it earlier on in the comments. If Bruno can win a World Cup medal and come back to Newcastle United, I mean, wow, what that's going to do for his confidence is just absolutely unbelievable. Yeah, I think I like Coffee saying, yeah, I think we do have the Wolves women team next in the cup. I think the cup draw was this evening, I think it was, same as our cup draw, which we'll come on to in a minute. How does their team compare to our women's team? I'm not too sure about Wolves, in all fairness, Coffee. I think Newcastle United, historically, I think we've not been great, I think, in the women's league. Certainly not compared to the likes of your Cities and your Man United and those kind of guys. And they're massively, I think they're a couple of leagues above us. But I think that we've really invested in some scouting of talent, I think, over the last few years. And I think the standards have really improved. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're very much a team on the up. I mean, in all fairness, I'll give them a shout out. NFTV, Newcastle Fan TV, do an amazing job covering the women's team as well. A fantastic job. So go check those guys out, Coffee, if you want to see a little bit more about the women's game, because they do an awesome job. So big shout out to those guys. They do a great job there. But yeah, I think the girls are really kicking on and really playing well. In terms of another cup draw, we had our FA Cup draw tonight, Mark. So it is the Steve Bruce Derby. How is the bacon, did you say? We have got Sheffield Wednesday in the third round of the FA Cup at Hillsborough, mate. You fancy a bit of that?
Was he there long enough to call this a Steve Bruce Derby? I mean,
they were really good to him. Do you remember when his parents?
I was going to play the break and bacon tag, but I'm not even sure it warrants it. He wasn't. I don't know. It's
raw bacon.
It's a good draw for Newcastle, isn't it? Because it gives him, again, an opportunity. I was sitting there watching it, going, it's going to be the Mackhams, isn't it?
Oh, I wanted it to be the Mackhams so bad. I was praying.
Please be it, because that would have been huge for the. I mean, that's going to be that would have been a TV game. It would have been absolutely rammed. You can imagine the atmosphere, and you can hear it now just thinking about it. It would have been unreal. And I think they came out. Did they come out back to back in the draw?
I think they did. It was very close. It was kind of getting down to the wire.
It wasn't far off.
And the Mackhams were there. Yeah, I think we were 27 and they were 37 numbers. I kept watching them going, oh, fucking hell. Yeah, Ash, you're right. They are the bastards who let us have the Baron of Bacon. So, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, so they are due a paste, and let's hope that the lads remember that. I hope Sean Longstaff plays the game of his life, thinking you're the reason that my game and my brother's game got fucked so badly. So I hope Sean Longstaff gets a hat-trick against them bastards. So that'll be a great game to see, mate. But it's interesting. I think certainly the FA Cup gives us a chance to rotate as well, to bring in some other players. I mean, obviously we've got these pre-season games coming. We're playing against a Saudi Arabian team, I think, in early December, and then on the 17th of December we have is it Rayo Vallecano coming to St James's Park? I think it is, and that'll be a good game to see the likes of Isaac trying to get his fitness up and everything else. And actually, we've got a little bit of a segue to Isaac in a minute, but just a comment there from, I think it was it Troy? Sorry, Tony. Don't mind Sheffield Wednesday fans. They seem quite decent. The ground has shown its age. Do you know what? I went to Sheffield Wednesday years ago to watch them play Fulham in the Championship. And they were awesome fans. Went for a few beers in and around the ground beforehand, and they were just class. They were dead nice people. Really welcoming, really friendly. So yeah, it was a decent.
It is one of the other grounds that I have actually visited many moons ago. I was on a football tour with the county, We went to go and see them. It might have been the first Premier League season. I got to watch Chrissy Waddle play for Chef Wed. And I think they won 2-1. But it was, you could tell then, it looked aged at that point, and I don't think an awful lot's happened to it since, to be honest with you.
No, it's...
But look, it's still one of those grounds that holds, a little bit of the history of English football, FA Cup semi-finals, all that kind of stuff. And I know we would go on to another subject that's linked to that, but we'll not. But it's just one of those grounds. They were a standard Premier League side for quite a while. So it's sad to see them drop. They're one of those sides I'd really like to see get back to where they were. That might never happen again. But they were always decent. They were never, you get some groups of fans that are complete arseholes. They never were.
Like Liverpool fans and Everton fans. Generally, most either Liverpool and Everton fans.
I wasn't going to name anybody, but there you go. Just throw
fuck it. I will.
It.
You're always a bit more PC than me, Mark. Fuck it. They do. The Scousers piss me right off these days. Moany faced bastards. I like Coffee say that friendly is against is Al Hilal, which is the same team that apparently were interested in signing Ronaldo. It's a funny one on Ronaldo. Just before we get into our transfer links, because I was listening to Gary Neville talking about Ronaldo, and he might have been trying to crawl up his arse to win favour with him again after he blanked him. But he made a good point. He said that Ronaldo looks really fit. He looks in shape at this World Cup. He's got 2 goals now, hasn't he? He's looked like, he should have had 3 really when he fluffed that header, didn't he, in the first game against Schar, when he rose up and just kind of...
Did he dive for the penalty?
Probably, because it's Ronaldo. He fucking dives all the time, doesn't he? But he does still look like he's capable of doing a job in a European team, in the European League. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe sign a pre-contract with the Saudi team for massive amounts of money, and then fuck off to somewhere like Inter Milan or AC Milan for 6 months on loan and finish up the season in Serie A or something like that. Mark, how do you think Ronaldo is gonna go about things? Because there's rumours that Messi apparently signed him for Inter Miami, isn't there? That seems to be getting louder and louder.
That was doing the rounds more this morning. That's almost a done deal, I think. A
good signing for them.
It's huge.
Fabregas and Suarez, I heard as well. All 3 going.
Wow.
That's some wage bill out from Beckham. Like fucking hell. He's spending that Qatari money right? Isn't he?
Do they not have a wage limit? Wage limit in there. So that's incredible if they can land all 3 of them. I know they're on the wrong side of the in terms of age, but God, they can still do a job, can't they? So, but Ronaldo, I would be surprised if he went and played in Saudi. Because I think he can still do a job. And I think he could still be the focal point. I still think he's probably got another 1.5, 2 years left in him. I think he said that he'd be good till he was 40. Christ, he's probably fitter than most of the Premier League footballers anyway.
Definitely Chris Wood.
I think I don't know what it was with Man U. I think he fell out of... I think he's obviously fallen out of favour with Ten Hag. He doesn't see him as the future, so he's going to play those that are going to give him longevity, and he's not going to pander to him. And I get that from the manager's point of view. If you're not going to be there for long, and you're trying to build something, do you want him disrupting that, or do you want to go in playing the players that you know are going to give you that longevity over 3, 4, 5 seasons? And I think that's a sensible approach from the manager, and it just means that one of the greatest footballers we've seen is pushed to one side, and it does feel an odd thing to say, doesn't it?
But yeah, I think it softens the blow a little bit, the fact that he's a grade A bellend, doesn't it, really? So you don't see you won't be too sad to see the back of him then. But as Coffee says there, Ronaldo's agents have already got the destination for him, which is why he probably forced his way out, which is right. BT saying that the MLS salaries are capped. I think Ash is saying that some wage bill, the cost of wheelchairs to get them about after games would be immense. A strain on the American healthcare system, absolutely. And BT says the Zimmer frames as well. But yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. But I suppose coming back to Newcastle United, as a few have already said in the comments there as well, we're missing some Newcastle United talk. So let's talk a little bit about transfer talk, Mark. There's been players linked. We've bashed a few, rumour has it. videos up. Not ITKs. We keep saying everybody, not ITKs. just media links to players. And there was a little bit of a weird story going around, wasn't there? That we dismissed it straight away as bullshit, as I did in the Rumour Has It video. But there's been links to is it Dusan Vlahovic from Juventus, the Serbian striker, was on the bench today for their mad 3-3 draw with Cameroon. And apparently, this weird batshit notion that Newcastle United are apparently willing to offer Alexander Isak as a swap deal for Vlahovic in the summer or possibly January. I mean, utter fucking manure in my eyes, Mark. I mean, Eddie Howe's already come out and spoke so highly about Isak, and Isak was even talking about how much he loves, playing for Newcastle United. He loves the city, loves settling in, he loves the fans. I mean, this is it's got to be a non-starter, Mark, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just utter rubbish. He's played what, 3 games? You're not going to sign somebody for that amount of money, play 3 games, and then go, do you know what? We'll send you off somewhere else and bring in somebody else. Is not the way it's going to happen.
No.
It is rubbish. I don't know where this started. Was it caught offside? We sort of saw the
caught offside that we quoted. It was some from a media outlet, which was funny because we had a couple of comments, and Ashes make a little bit of fun about that one there. But MI5, I think somebody said MI5 didn't know who we were going to sign. So what hope did we have as YouTubers? And there was some brilliant comments coming out. Yeah, Ash is saying there was that name in Italy. I can't pronounce that. It's too late for me, Ash. But yeah, to be fair, so some of the best comments that we had in the comments was from Aaron, who's not in the comments tonight. I even said you could win one. I would have to send you one of these, Aaron, for that comment because it was just it was box office made, to be fair. So it was.
I'm going to take a crack at that. Calcio Mercado.
No, fuck you! Just fucking Googled that or something. In your ear, how do you pronounce that word? Honestly, mate, he's such a shithouse. He said he pretends that he can pronounce all these words. He just researched them or something. Stop feeding them. We've got a comment from BT there as well. He's saying they're key men for their country. However, the manager believes they're not fit enough to play from the start. That's an interesting comment there, isn't it, to be fair? So, yeah.
I did think actually on that subject, I did think it was odd that Vlahovic hasn't played fully.
I think they fancy Mitrovic instead, don't they?
But Mitro's on fire, isn't he? So
you can start singing there. Mitro's on fire. Yeah, but to be fair, he scored, didn't he, as well? Mitro does well for his country, in all fairness. But
he also missed a couple.
Well, true, yeah. But mind you, he's a lot better than he used to be. He would have missed a couple and headbutted somebody in the teeth, probably, and got a red card shortly after that. So he has matured a bit. But obviously, another couple of players linked. I mean, Maddison never goes away. Diaby never goes away. But Christian Pulisic was a player linked earlier on today. That was, obviously from Chelsea. Played really well against England in the night. Didn't he hit the bar? Was very unlucky. Looks a good player. He's still very young, isn't he? Pulisic, is he 24, 25 or something like that? Pulisic, he's not an old player. And apparently it's ourselves, Manchester United. I think Everton, possibly are in for him. And I think Ash is saying there as well. Yes, Santos as well.
Can Everton afford him?
Oh, I don't think Everton can afford him at all. But I think to be fair, Pulisic would fit in really well to our squad. I think I said in our chat earlier on that if Maddison is a goer, which everyone seems to think it is, I can't see Pulisic coming in because Chelsea won't loan him out.
Really, if you're looking at them as two, it's one or the other. I don't think you're going to get both of them because the cost alone, I think you're probably looking at similar sort of deals in terms of wages and transfer fees. So that would be a one-off. You're not going to £260 million players. You're not going to do in January.
Yeah, absolutely. No, to be fair, like I said, I think Maddison's the one that we've all got our eyes on. I definitely still think that deal is going to happen. There is some of the young players, as Ash said there. Santos is apparently a huge target in January, and the other one was Maximo Peroni, wasn't it? Which I think is great. It sounds like a night out, as I keep saying. Maximo Peroni, maximum hangover the next day. But young defensive midfielder, Argentinian. The president of his club, Christian Basadas, our ex-midfielder, didn't pull up any trees.
It sounds familiar, yeah.
Is it not? That'll probably be the best thing he's ever done for Newcastle if he comes over and signs a contract, sign this kid. But he's only 19, but really highly rated. Everyone puts him in the same kind of bracket as, Bruno when he was kind of in and around that age. But he's a holding midfielder. We did a rumour has it on him before, but that one sounds like it could be a goer, but I don't know whether he'll be one for the future. A bit like, some of these other lads that have been signing for the development squad, Mark. Could be an interesting one.
I think he's probably going to be more closely linked to the first team squad given this position, because there's not an awful lot of So he might not play. I think it might be more. It may even be one of those that comes in and then goes out as a development loan somewhere. But certainly he does look very, very good. He certainly fits a positional need long term as well. So if you can get him in reasonably quickly and for a good deal, and I'm not sure that the fee is going to be astronomical, and they tend not to be, and he's got huge amounts of room to grow. So it does seem like almost a perfect fit, and especially coming into that squad with Eddie Howe's philosophy and how he's playing, it would really suit the style and really fit the bill for what you need.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, you've only got to look at Spain, Gavi and Pedri to say that if you're good enough, you're old enough, mate. I mean, two unbelievable players.
Do you know what it is? You touched on that the other day that you're saying they've done it again. I mean, the picture of Xavi and Iniesta and then those two, and I thought, do you know what it is? Yeah. Do you know what I like about those two, Gavi and Pedri? The fact they don't give a shit. They get stuck in. They don't mind throwing themselves around. They're not all. I mean, they're quite slight. But they're really good on the ball. But they don't mind getting stuck in and doing some of the dirty work. And that's encouraging from a Spain point of view, isn't it? That they've got a couple of midfielders that are dynamite on the ball, but can really stick it in when they have to dig in.
And to be fair, they were playing against some big German lads as well, as always the Germans are, and they weren't scared of it. But we could start by saying what Gerard Piqué loves about those two, but I won't go there, mate. I won't go there. So we'll just finish up on the last little tidbit of news there, which is just kind of breaking earlier on today. The Chronicle ran a story about this, and apparently Newcastle United are looking to get out of the Fun 88 sponsorship deal, and they're going to sign the biggest sponsorship deal the club's had in their history to start next season with. I mean, we talked about this a little bit before on the show, Mark. We are going to be back on Wednesday night, guys, at 7. Check it out. We're going to do a bit of a special on the true cost of football in terms of what it costs you as a fan to follow your club, for your tickets, for the your clothing, your strips, and all of the stuff that goes with the club. We're just going to have a little chatting amongst the lads about that as well. The Welsh Wizard will be on as well if you want to come on in the comments and have a chat with him as well. But yeah, we're going to be covering off that. But the Fun 88 deal obviously is a bit of a one last greatest hit from the Mike Ashley era. It wasn't a great deal commercially, Mark, and I think it's something that Newcastle fans would be glad to see the back of. I mean, what was your take on this news when it broke?
I mean, just it's pretty much standard now, isn't it, for everything that's going on at the club? It's trying to move on from the past, get rid of the poor deals that were made under Ashley. The kit deal for one, I think, was with a. When you look at it now, I guess in hindsight, it probably fit his mold, but now in terms of demand, in terms of the ability to fulfill orders and stuff. We've seen the problems with the way that Castori have done it. I think this is just another step in the right direction commercially for Newcastle. If they have to fork out to get out of this deal, they're going to get that money back in absolute spades from other commercial deals. So it's not going to. It might cost them a fortune to normal folk, but it's going to be a drop in the ocean to them, isn't it?
Absolutely. And Ash, you're right. Just need to get rid of Castori, and we're laughing. I mean, that's definitely going to be something that we, that we're talking about on Wednesday. I mean, we recently bought a bit of training kit to obviously send out to our 2,000 subscriber in a competition. And, you're talking about, was it 60 odd quid? And the quality was dreadful. The build quality and everything else, you look at it and you think to yourself, wow. I mean, this is fucking shocking, really, for the money that these fuckers want for this. It's disgraceful.
It's a lovely thing to have done for somebody, but actually you sort of half feel guilty for having inflicted, something like that, because you just think, well, thank God you haven't had to buy it yourself, because it is poor quality. And you see the number of times this happens with kit, especially some of the smaller kit suppliers that are trying to make their name. And Castori have got into the Premier League now. Is it 3 clubs they've got? So Newcastle, Wolves and Villa, I think, are the 3. And and you've complaints from all across, and especially with the way that the demand for kits, especially in terms of Newcastle ones, has gone up. It just means that the delays are inevitable. And we even saw when we were looking at the stuff, just how out of stock stuff was to try and buy. It was ridiculous. So
absolutely, I agree with you, Ian, as well. Just get rid of them. It is a hangover from the fat Cottony bastard era. I wouldn't be surprised if he made out like a bandit from that deal. And Ash thinks it'll be a Saudi on the front of the shirt. Wouldn't be surprised. Monster's obviously another one as well, which is a corporate deal, which Coffee mentioned there before as well. But we'll get stuck into this on Wednesday, guys. So definitely make sure you check that out live at 7 p.m. Me and Mark will be back with a couple of lads to go through that. But I think that's just pretty much wrapped up, Mark, for this week, isn't it? For what's gone on as usual.
Indeed. If obviously you enjoy the game tomorrow, if you can, we'll. I'm sure we'll be on Twitter and stuff to comment about how poorly England are playing at the time.
I won't. I'm not allowed to. I'm not allowed to.
We usually do. So yeah. Like I say, Chris said, come and join us on Wednesday at 7. We'll be talking cost of football and all things. Yeah, just getting ripped off, basically. That's pretty much.
Absolutely. Listen, we always left on a bit of crack and banter on the show, which we will definitely do on Wednesday. But it's quite a serious subject because I just think it is really poor. The way they're asking fans to shell out so much money, in real difficult times for people that are struggling to put their heating on and everything else, and some of the cost they want for a piece of material with a really poorly stitched badge and emblem on is a fucking disgrace, to be honest with you. But we'll be getting stuck right into that on Wednesday, guys. But we're signing off now. If you're new to the channel, if you haven't caught us before, please smash the like and subscribe button. Like the video if you can. Everybody who's been in the comments, it really helps us push the channel and push the episodes as well. And have a great evening, everybody. Have a good kip. I'm up there early in the morning for a drive down to the northwest. So you have a cracking night, boys, and we will catch you later.
Take care, guys.
Cheers.